I'm not loving this bike.
Huh?
I'm not loving this bike. It feels pretty traily, like the head angle doesn't feel slack enough. It doesn't feel as good as a Nomad, that's for sure. The Nomad felt so much better. Am I filming? Am I filming?
Let's stop at that one feature on Indeed.
Just bomb it! Woo!
This is my review of the Trek Slash 9.7. I'm just going to talk about the specifications first. It's OCLV carbon construction, some of the best carbon the industry is made by Trek. And the front fork was a Yari, which is 160 mils of travel. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I hear the Lyric with the Charger damper is far superior to it. It comes with a RockShox Deluxe RC3 rear shock, which does the job for intended job quite well. It has the Bontrager line competition 30 mil internal width rims, and it's boost 110 front spacing and boost 148 rear. The tires were the Bontrager CE4 tires. They seem to do the job okay. They're 29 by 2.4. I think that's a great width for the bike, so I was happy with the width, and I've been pretty happy with Bontrager tires. Usually I ride Maxxis, but to be honest, when I ride the Bontrager ones, I can't tell that much of a difference. The shifter, the bike's drivetrain is SRAM NX11 speed, which is perfectly fine for this bike at this spec, and it comes with descendant cranks, which are, pretty cheap cranks. The one thing a downside on it comes with PF92 press fit bottom brackets, so I'm not a big fan of press fit bottom brackets. They just tend to get some dust in there and then they squeak. Companies just put them in because it's far cheaper to manufacture than having to make threaded bottom brackets. So when companies cheap out like that, I'm not impressed. Other notable components are the SRAM guide R brakes. Guides seem to do the job quite well. They have great modulation, but not that great power. I can't remember what diameter the rotors are, but I would definitely go with 203 front and rear for these big wheels on this bike. If you had Saints, then you could probably get away with a 180 mil rotor. And the bike's claimed weight is 31.96 pounds, so basically 32 pounds with tubes. I find that quite heavy for an enduro bike. I like to be kind of around the 28, 29 pound mark, but this isn't a top spec bike, so I guess that's to be expected at this price point. So as I was saying earlier, the components are pretty Bontrager specific, which is their inline division of components. So Bontrager does a great job, but it's definitely a way of Trek for saving money with having their wheels, their tires, even the stem and handlebar are Bontrager, seat post, saddle, basically all the components they can put on that they put on, so that definitely brings down the cost on their side for the bike. The bike retails for $4,500 US dollars or 6,000 Canadian.
Oh!
So onto my rider impression of the bike. As I alluded to in the initial part of the video, I wasn't that impressed with this bike. It felt a lot more traily than what I expected. I demoed the S-Works Enduro 2017 last year at Crankworks when it first came out, and I found that bike to be far more playful and loose and feeling more like a 27.5 bike. I'm not sure if it's due down to the carbon wheels, but it just felt a lot more light and playful. This bike felt like it liked to charge hard and go straight in a fast line quite well, but when it came to cornering, it just felt like it didn't want to corner. It just felt like a freight train, and on the rougher stuff, it just didn't feel like it had the travel that it does have. And I was saying, the head angle felt like it was quite steep on the bike, even though it's not. It's quite slack. I can't remember the exact specifications of what the head angle was, but it was well within all the other enduro bikes, so you'd think it would feel a lot more enduro focused, but it felt like a large trail bike to me. If this was my personal bike and I bought it and I was unhappy with it, I'd be upgrading to carbon wheels, definitely some lighter EXO tires, and maybe an angle set headset just to slacken out the head angle a little bit more. But first thing I'd play with is some lighter wheels and tires, get some Maxxis, EXO, DHF, and DHR2s for the bike if you're going to be riding more aggressively. I'd probably put a high roller on the back if I was using it more for just general enduro purposes. I'm not a big fan of the high roller as a rear tire in the bike park, but for enduro riding, I actually don't mind it. It climbs pretty well. As far as climbing impressions go, I can't say too much. I really was in the bike park with it, so I didn't climb with it at all. I assume with a 29er it'd be quite good, but you know, climbing's a second priority to me. I just use the climbs just to get to the descent, so as long as it climbs reasonably well and it has a reasonably steep seat tube angle, I'm pretty happy. I'm not into racing up to the top of the mountains or into super technical climbs, but this bike felt like it would climb well with these 29er wheels on it.
All in all, I'd say this bike is a good trail / enduro bike. I personally would want a higher spec and some carbon wheels to make it more exciting, but if you're into doing enduro trails and into cross country, this would be a good bike. I wouldn't recommend it as a do-it-all bike for slaying the park and doing hard enduro personally, at least in this specification.
If you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps my channel grow.